How does slavery start? And what are the best methods to sustain slavery and obtain slavery? Well, one might think that slavery begins with forcing people to hear you talk, forcing them into conversations with you. Now, this might not be the first time you have this idea when you're thinking of investing in a future in slavery or just figuring it out, like some of us are. Very few of us are spending our time doing that, but some of us are, right? So, what I assume is what happens is people come up to you and they have to be like, "Hey, you want to work for me?" Or they can be like, "Hey, it's time to do some work for me." Or they can be like, "Fuck you, get in the car." You know, there's several ways you can do this, but most of the times it's going to start with forcing someone to speak with you. That's why this gets really weird to me when I have forced interactions with people, especially when we have patterns where, if you read psychology, you can understand the mind of a person, an egomaniac who knows they have the right to speak with you. This is a mindset that we might assume slavers have, correct? They have the right to speak with you, and you must listen to them. You must do everything they say. But how can we even get to slavery if we don't ask the person, you know, do you want to work? How long can you work? Will you run away once I start making you work? You know, uh, will you teach your children to work for me? How do we even have slavery if we don't do this? If I could, let's say we don't talk at all. So I come in your nation with a club. We don't have words, so we can't speak yet because this is the only time in human history no one ever spoke. There was no words. Someone had to invent words in order for them to approach you and ask you if you want to work for them or tell you you're going to work for them or else. So let's see, am I correct that the first step to slavery is forcing people to talk to you? Now, we also know that this might be the first step. I mean, slavery includes lots of things. Sometimes it's sexual slavery. Sometimes people want to invade your house, get you used to coming in, and they'll have their family come in and take your house, stuff like that. So this to me seems like it'd be a prerequisite to robbery, rape, and slavery, and maybe other things too. Did you know there's actually people out there who it seems like all they really need. I think there's a word for this you guys have invented. It's called energy vampires, psychic vampires. People, we used to call it social parasites. It wasn't very popular because people who aren't social parasites don't talk. So it's not like we go around going like, "Hey, watch out for those social parasites, buddy. How was that game today, though? Isn't it really good? The Bucks fucking trampled them as usual." I mean, the motherfucker who doesn't talk doesn't need to tell you the Bucks trampled someone because we know that the Bucks is 9 times out of 10 is going to trample someone. They almost always win. There's a loss every now and then to keep the game fresh and interesting. But like if you're not one of the talking people, then that's not a dialogue you follow up with in my city. You're just like, "Yeah, go Bucks," and then everyone else is like, "Yeah, go Bucks." So you know what that means. It means they just trampled someone. You don't have to explain it. But the words here. So the words, when we come with the words here, um, you walk up to some people and you're like, "It's time to work. Get in the car," right? Because think about it. When we're doing slavery, we don't want to kill the people. We don't want to chop their legs off because you can't work for me if I've chopped your legs off. You can't work for me if I've killed you. This is a bottom line thing. Now, It might take you a few times to learn this, that you don't go into a place and shoot the people in the head and be like, it's time to work now. I, you was thought you was going to do something else, but now you're working for me. Because what's probably most likely going to happen in that situation is you're going to leave, and sometime within the next couple days, hours, months, years, hopefully, you will have figured out that you just killed those people. And there's a high possibility they're not going to do any work for you ever. And that could be your fault. Now, if you're egomaniac type people who do these things, if you're an egomaniac full of yourself, you're going to find ways to blame something else. Oh, well, God's not letting him work for me. That's always everyone's favorite, right? There's an invisible goat. The invisible Satan's possessed them. And now he's making them so lazy they won't get up out of their coffins and come over here and work for me. Yeah. You've heard it before. There's a small chance that could happen, right? There's definitely a small chance. Maybe not a huge chance, but I would think, before you even, you got to streamline the process. If you're trying to be a businessman, trying to invest and build and grow your empire, you have to, you're not going anywhere. You might as well just you got to learn how to enslave yourself first here. You're not doing very good if you're like 5 years down the road, like blaming Satan for killing the people you just shot in the head, or blaming Satan for making the people you just shot in the head so lazy and resilient to your technique that they just refuse to move whenever you come around, because they're just that stubborn of fools. They don't want to come enjoy watching you enjoy yourself, So I assume, I live this life with this assumption that slavery must begin with dialogue, right? Because I think, at least 10% of us have got to the point where we can understand that if you kill that person, chop their leg off, instead of saying, hey, come work for me, it's more effective if you shoot someone in their chest a few times, chop an arm or leg off. The chance they're going to do whatever you say is near 100%. It's probably almost always, there's like a 99% chance, and it's a really good chance. For those of you not very good with math, 99 out of 100. It's like saying that you're not breathing, right? Every now and then I'm not breathing. But the chance that that's real the rest of the time it's just not real. Oh, no, is the sky going to be purple and black today? Well, every now and then it is now, isn't it? But is it ever? Not really. So, you got a 99% chance there. If you shoot someone a few times, chop their leg off, they're going to do whatever you say. So that's the perfect slave. In fact, a person like that knows. They know right away. And they know for the rest of their existence. They know to go spread the good word to their children, to their parents, to their loved ones, to their girlfriend, to their boyfriend, to their husband, to their wife, to strangers. They will go out on the street and tell the strangers, we must praise this person for it. This is what they'll do. They're going to shoot you in the chest 3 times and chop your leg off if you don't. Right? So, a lot of people can get to that understanding. This is probably the first step to slavery, forcing people to talk to you and to hear your bullshit. Coughing, all that smoking and stuff. So I think we might be able to roll this out. The first step to slavery is talking. I actually have come to the point where I realize, hey, the book that everyone's using to enslave people is the world's first book. That's kind of odd, the world's first book. It discusses slavery. It says slavery is good. Like, they took time to invent language and spread it across the world. And the book just happens to tell you slavery is good. And it seems like language only purpose is slavery. Yeah, that's the only thing I've ever learned is work, but mostly mind control. Every now and then, I learn something great because I'm like pretty strict with what I let be forced into my life. And as much as I can be, right? I mean, you can't really. Sometimes people do come after your arms and legs and your head, because eventually we'll get to this discussion. I mean, it should be logical. It should take you 10 seconds to figure out that someone's going to get shot in their head eventually if someone's not doing their work. But yeah, so you have the Egyptian people, they don't even know language. They're just carving symbols. They have the slaves carving symbols into sand. And the people own everything on the planet tell us those symbols are saying there's half bird people on the planet. And I kind of get the idea, they hate people, and they tell us that brown people, and especially Africans, are really stupid. And I've never thought that anyone's dumb enough to believe some of that shit. I always think that there's a border there that has to be crossed in order to be smart enough to walk, talk, and breathe at separate times, yet alone at the same time. And so I've never really looked at those pictures and been like, oh, well, these people are idiots who thought there was a half bird. They thought they worshipped a half bird. I always kind of got the idea, well, these people were slaves being forced to carve into stone, and then there was a guy wearing a bird mask, and he told them to write down whatever he says or he's going to kill them. Now, isn't that the story of every nation on the planet? Every group, everything that existed more than a couple of years, pretty much, isn't it? So I don't see why the half bird people, the flying reindeer, the people who brought us flying reindeer, would be doing anything different. They don't even know how to do anything different. How are they going to do something different if they don't even know how to? That's another thing. Why would they do anything different if they never have? And how would they if they don't know how to? Well, fucking Einstein couldn't figure that out because Einstein's one of them. And he's not going to help you figure out anything about his people and their half-bird bullshit. So that's where writing comes from. So we have direct links to language being involved in slavery. If you didn't think how you get a slave is to walk up to it and say, hey, it's time to go work for me, which is probably the best route, right? And then obviously, let's get past this. If we have to stay on this long, man, oh my God, you must be a human or something. Fucking, you must be one of these people out here forcing fucking dialogue and shit. Anyway, so, because you gotta realize at the end of the day, some of these people are doing this just like they are. So they're trying to make you stay on a topic because they know where the topic's going until they see you wrapping the fucking slip knot with the fucking rope. And they're thinking in their head, some people are always on guard because of the shit they do in life. And they're thinking, even when they walk by a stranger on the street with the slip knot, making a slip knot, or sharpening his sword, or loading bullets in his gun, that's probably for him. Some people live like that. I'm sure they live in fear. I've seen this shit in discussions with people. It's like the fear comes up before the topic comes up, and it's like, hello, and they're like, And you're like, damn, how did you know where this topic was going, my friend? My fine weathered friend? Jesus, what's wrong with you today? You must be withdrawing from all that crack and stuff. Your anxiety is super illegally high. Yeah, it's crazy. See what happens when you smoke all them drugs and you take all them drugs is the reverse happens when you come down. So if you feel all great and special, all of a sudden you feel not so great and not so special, and then it makes you all nervous. Maybe that's what it is. What I'm seeing sometimes they're just coming down from crack and shit. Fucking. But anyways, I just like I would recommend if you're interested in this slavery venture, using crack, and then make sure you get the job done before you go through the withdrawal, because next thing you know, you'll be like, you know what, I'm a really bad person. You should probably put me in shackles and I'll work for you instead. So you got to get it done while you're on your ego medication and shit. Fucking. Anyway, so I think we got that down, right? The first step to slavery is someone has to force you to speak with them, right? So then what after that? So majority, I don't know. I know some people who are like, yes. Like I know some girls who are like telling me like they want choked and they want whipped. So but they play games too. So you factor that in, and I think 99% of people, even most of the ones who want it, will be like, no, because it's part of the fun and enjoyment for the ones who want it to be like, yeah, I know someone who watched porno, and it was just like naked German blondes beat not in Nazi hats, beating chained up people at Camp Auschwitz, right? So this is like their fetish, but I do assume if I would have went further into it, this person would have told me how evil and we would never want that done. That's just like the worst thing on the planet. Um, you know, they're playing that game like that girl who once choked or that girl who once slapped, and instead of having actual sex, she gets off on being whipped or choked. Or so there are some people like that, but we should take into account that generally that's a game, because like they have to feel the power loss, right? It's not exciting if it's not really happening. Like they are after the beating and the whipping. They're not after having their tits grabbed or their wieners grabbed. They are after the beating and the whipping and shit. And the more realistic is it's like better sex, it's just like better sex overall. It's like using it's the Kama Sutra of fetish. BDSM is when it's realistic, when you're chained up and you ain't getting out of the room, and the person leaves the room for 3 to 4 hours, and you hear them like cocking their gun and grinding their axe. Like just that feeling alone, it's probably like, just hearing that alone is like, oh my god, this is so great. Oh my god, wow, this is amazing. All the anticipation and stuff. So those people, I also don't think they would be like, yeah, let's go. It's time for slavery. Are you going to whip me? Is it a really good whip, or is it one of those cheap little boys whip you people sometimes have? They're not going to get like that unless they, want smacked real fast. Sometimes, they get sassy because they want smacked and stuff. But I would think generally right away they've got to set the stage themselves. They're in control, but they're setting the stage that you're in control, because it probably has something to do with people who have too much control, liking a feeling that they never get to feel. Like a hot chick who secretly wants tied up and beaten, and it's not so secret when she gets you into the back room and tells you, hey, I actually like this, I want this done. um, or there's like the women dominatrix. They have the rich men, and the rich men pay them like $10,000 a half hour to just kick them and beat them. Don't even have sex with them, but you know, they just the yin and the yang. The Buddha would call it the yin and the yang, where one's life is not complete without the missing thing. But anyway, so we can pretty much factor in that 99% of the people after the discussion, hey, do you want to come work for me for free? Or come work for me and do this stupid stuff I do that no one wants to do. However they word it, I don't know how they used to word it in the olden days. There's a lot of, there's been 6,000 plus years of writing since the olden days, so they've sat around and thought for 6,000 years while on crack too. While on crack, they've got crack now to advance their thoughts. So the thoughts can go wild and create a whole bunch of fantasy stuff like a vampire who's against vampires, or a vampire that's a zombie, all these crazy thoughts no one could ever think of that are so different are coming into the world. You think at that point, right, most people are going to be like, yeah, no, I'm not working for you. And then, so what do you do from there? Well, you pull out a gun, don't you? Your first time you pull out a gun, you're like, pat, 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 pat. That's right. You can't do no work, right? And well, guess what happened? Your ego got you the best of. Guess who your ego got the best of? That's right, you. But now you're going to have to do that all again. And you know what that is? That is work. And what is the point of slavery? So you don't have to do any work. You're really thinking now, aren't you, dumbass? So do we do that? No, we don't. We do not shoot people we are trying to enslave. Okay, so we don't do that. So we go to the next person. We find, and we're like, you want to work for me for free? And they're like, I don't know about that. And I got things to do. I got a child here. Yeah. In my own brain. And then, then slaver's like, pulls out the gun, starts to cock it, and then they realize, like, oh shit, my ego got the best of me last time. What do I do here? And if you're lucky at this point in time, you're going to learn just cocking that gun is enough to get certain people to jump into the cart, and put their handcuffs on for you, so they can be taken off, and their leg cuffs and stuff, so they can be taken off to the factory to work in, the construction site or whatever. But if not, at that point in time, you've got to come to a conclusion. What do we do now? Well, we use something less lethal. Less lethal. That's a new word. You're saying, but Sean, that's a new word. History, humans have never had anything less lethal. They just, George Orwell just invented this in Oceania within the last 40 years with smoke grenades and flashbangs and tasers, didn't he? Yes, that is correct. That part is correct. They just invented flashbang, smoke grenades, and tasers. But George Orwell's people have always had something called a whip. Even before guns, there was the club and the whip. Now, we only got to the gun because the gun is the ultimate equalizer that decides who's in charge of everything going on within sight of the person with the gun. So, what do? Well, we got to go find a whip, because these days we're not in those medieval times where whips are everywhere. So we got to go to Temu and order a whip, right? And the people, they deliver the whip, so then you come back with a whip, right? And you say, would you like to come work with me for free, sir? Or ma'am? Or if it's a ma'am, would you like to come have sex with me for free, ma'am? Right? Different jobs for different folks. And then and they're like, no. If they say no, now we have the whip. And we pull out the whip and we slap it across their face. And then a lot of people, 30 to 40% of people at this point in time, will understand, yes, I actually would like to go work for you. That sounds a lot better than the current situation I'm in, and we'll discuss it later. Will I get fed? Do I have a place to sleep? There you go. That's how you get a slave. Now, events. Once we do that, we're just building up our business here. We're getting ourselves a secretary. We're getting ourselves a clerk. We're getting ourselves a file deliverer, a package deliverer, a package opener. We're working our way up. We do this a few times and stuff, right? And then we start to learn that we can't run a business by ourselves if there's more than ourselves in the business. So then we have to move on to other methods, don't we? So we have to learn how to keep the business running, right? Martha over here is crying all the time because her vagina hurts because someone's having sex with it all the time and using whips and all sorts of stuff as well, because it's getting old, regular stuff's getting old, or whatever. And then Marty hears her crying. So this is like inciting Marty, right? Marty's like, oh my God, what's he doing to her? We gotta not too concerned with me. What are we gonna do about that though? And then so you gotta start worrying about rebellions. What if or sick leave or people who no longer want to work with you or people who want to go on a vacation. We don't have time for vacations and sick leave, do we? Um, so so how do we deal with that? What if this scenario comes up? How do we deal with that? Well, we go over here to Jackson, the file clerk, and we're going to have to ask Jackson to monitor the event for us. We're going to give Jackson his own whip. In fact, we're going to ask Jackson to start obtaining new workers for the business so we can expand even more. Because Jackson's been a real good employee. He's never shown any signs of hatred or distress, and he doesn't bleed very much because I don't have to hit him very much because he's a good person. He's not like Mary, she's always bleeding and crying. And Marty's always looking like he's like, having an anxiety attack and stuff. You can't trust him. He's going to have a nervous breakdown at some point. So we go over to Jackson and we ask Jackson, well, Jackson, I need a manager for this establishment because my couch, I brought a brand new couch and I haven't even got to use it. So I have to manage this place all by myself, Marty. I have to manage this place all by myself, Jackson. And with people like Marty starting to act the way they are, I'm very concerned about where this might head if I take some time off for myself. And I'd like to take some time off for myself. And also, we have this problem, Jackson, where we're going to need another file clerk if I promote you to manager of the business, right? So then Jackson perks up. He's like, oh, wow, I get promoted. Like, I get to live in the house. Wow. Do I get fed better too? And you're like, yeah, I'll give you 3 meals a week instead of 2 meals a week to start, and we'll see how good you do from there. Maybe give you 3 or 4 meals a week. If you can work your way up, you never know. The sky's the limit, Jackson. And Jackson's like, hell yeah, what do I have to do? And you give him, you order another whip. Make sure you got another one for yourself, and you give Jackson the whip. And then, so Jackson, he's now manager of the joint. Jackson's all super excited, right? And he's walking around, and there's Marty and Martha, Amber, and the whole crew. And he's like, "You stupid scrubs, get back to work." Like he was walking around making sure that they're doing their job. And every now and then, you got Martha crying every now and then and stuff. And Marty is like, he's acting like he's going to have a nervous breakdown and he's not being very productive. So, Jackson just cracks the whip a little bit and he's like, "You are a fucking lazy bum. What are you doing, Marty? Marty, you are doing no work. You're just sitting there shaking. You are sitting there shaking. Are you using crack? Do we have to drug test you? I'm going to make you pay for that if we have to drug test you. Why are you shaking, Marty? Stop it. Get to work." Because Jackson's manager now. Jackson ain't fucking Marty. He ain't on Marty's level no more. Marty's a fucking bum. Marty's sitting there high on crack or something, fucking having a seizure half the day. And then Melissa and Amber are over there crying constantly and bleeding everywhere. And now Jackson is in control of management, and he's going to have to figure out who's cleaning up the blood, too. Now they're bleeding everywhere. They're crying. And he's trying to be a good manager. He respects his job. He likes his promotion. He's going places. No one else in there is going any place. Let me tell you about that. He's one of the chosen few. He is now going places. And he knows this. There's no sign here. He's got a nice shirt on now. I gave him a nice shirt and everything, and some nice pants and some shoes instead of sandals. He's got that job promotion. That's what happens. You get that job promotion and you move on up the ladder. And so, and he realized too, with all this work going on, it's surprising, luckily it's a new job, a new promotion. So he's feeling good. He's real excited for the new life he's living. The opportunity to move up the corporate ladder. And so he's got to start worried about who's going to take his old job because he can't do both at the same time. And he's still doing the file clerk stuff while he's doing learning the management stuff. So now he's got to do that. And so he's got some options if he knows it or not. What he can do is he can go learn how to enslave people, or he can ask his boss how to do it, how he learned to do it. Because, if he comes to the boss asking for a pistol, obviously right away, the boss might be like, "Well, look, that's not going to work as well as you think it is. It works too good, so we can't do that. And this is also why I'm giving you a whip," right? So now Jackson is on the path to help expand the business. Because he's moved up. He's under the CEO right now. He's management, and it's his job to expand the business at this point. So he's going to need to find a replacement for his old person, and so he does that, right? And I think can we end this story here? Is there something I'm missing here? Oh yes, there is. Okay, so advance down the road here, 20-40 years. And Jackson has a kid, right? Because Jackson's living large. He's manager of the establishment. He sleeps in the house. And eventually he had Martha. He got permission to have sex with Martha. And it pissed Master off, but they had a kid. But the CEO, realized that that's actually another worker. and they needed a gardener still. No one had hired a gardener. No one really cares about the gardener, because you already got the crop workers. But the gardener, everyone wants flowers, right? Like what when the CEO has a woman come over and there's no flowers, what is she going to be impressed by? Is she going to be impressed by his stagecoach and maybe the horses might look fancy and stuff? Is she going to be impressed by his uh his musket and his revolver? Mm, probably not. They generally aren't, right? Is she going to be impressed by his ability to maintain and control a business? Probably not. I don't think they can get that far in understanding. Um, so she'll be she might be impressed generally overall, but the thing is, the more you impress, the better. So that's why people don't have just a nice pair of shoes and they put on a nice pair of slacks and a nice coat and a nice shirt under the coat, and we put a nice bracelet on, don't we? And then we brush our teeth so our teeth look nice. And we wash our skin so our skin looks nice. So each of these things add up, Obviously, the CEO of a company has this figured out by the time he's got 12 employees, how you combine things and transform into a superpower that works efficiently and gets the job done. So anyway, so eventually they have a kid, don't they? And so he decides, they've been working and expanding for a while, and they think, well, Jackson gets beaten for the first time in a long time, actually, because he's not supposed to do things like that. But he realizes, a few weeks later after that, like, you know what, this can be beneficial. Jackson, what I want you to do is I want you to teach. I went a little far with the beatings there. And what I realize is we can do this as a team. What I want you to do here is I want you to raise your kid right, and I'll help you feed it 3 to 4 meals a week, just like you get. And I'll give it a pair of pants and a shirt to wear that you're going to have to wash every day. Make sure he stays clean, or she, if it's unfortunately another she. We've got enough of them right laying in my bed right now. Um, and then you can teach him how the business works, right? And then Jackson's like happy, right? Because Jackson's moved on up in the world. He's a manager at Slavery Incorporated, and he's in charge. He's large and in charge. The CEO doesn't have to be around. He's making every decision below the word down. So everything's in control. He messes up, it's on him. He's in control. And so he says, I'm going to trust you to raise your children to be part of Slavery Incorporated. And so we can expand this even further. And, well, I mean, that's how the story begins, isn't it? Isn't that from what I see, this is how it begins. Right? This is what am I taught my whole life? When I'm little, okay, so right now there's shit going on in this world. I got people walking up to me, talking to me about shit. And then I was taught the exact opposite of that like 40 years ago by my parents, by Jackson's wife. Jackson taught me different things. Jackson's wife taught me other things. Jackson actually didn't teach me shit because he was busy managing the company, or many of them. Because Jackson is expanding. Eventually, Jackson's going to be running the plantation, the mansion, the hiring, the firing, or rather executions. We don't fire people from this job. and everything involved, right? The production, the selling. Jackson eventually is in control of all that because he's the first guy, the main guy, and the one who retains control of himself, able to maintain and stay level headed in the situation, a busy, hectic corporate environment. I'm purposely smiling. I don't have to break character here. So, anyways, if anyone was ever wondering, I purposely do that because I'm like, maybe that's why I'd be like, I'm not winking. I'm not winking. No one ever got that part. Because I'm not winking, right? I'm just having a seizure and stuff. And I'm just saying I'm not winking at the same time. That's part of a seizure if it comes from me, apparently. Yeah, breathing like that definitely doesn't mean anything either. It doesn't mean I'm fed up with fucking breathing because it's became a chore and shit. I don't know where I'd even get that idea. Other than the fact sometimes it is fucking hard to breathe and I have to like do the Buddha shit, fucking retrain myself to breathe. That makes me question why some older people I know, they're on CPAP machines. And it's like, I see your life and I see your action. And I see you have the same allergic reaction I would to some of the shit going on around you. And like are you purposely choosing to stop breathing and someone's forcing you on a machine to continue forcing you to breathe? You see, this is where this story might end if we go on for discussing expanding the corporation. That was a little thing I didn't even really mean to get to, but it's so knitted in and tailored in that I bring it up because it's happening, and then it just happens to be something I suspect might be part of things. Men used to only live till he was like 50. And then now I see everywhere all these ads for, oh, get your breathing machine and get your radiation poisoning treatment for your cancer and get your life support machine and get your hospice and your old folks home to go live in and stuff because I don't know, they used to be very well talked about that old people didn't want to go to those. But anyways, that it kind of makes me wonder if that's not like accumulation of where this goes. Because see, the boss at the corporation, some bosses are always need more. Like if you're running a corporation, that's kind of the point there. There's no room for advancement if you're not creating room for advancement. There's no advancement if you're not advancing. And the whole mindset behind creating something, if you're purposely doing it, if you're purposely creating a family, the people I know who purposely created a family did that because they wanted their kids to have more than them and become more than them. And in order to do that, they worked on themselves to become more than themselves. And as far as I can tell, a lot of people who get on that train, it gives you something to do in life. A lot of people get on that train, stay on that train until they, something happens to the train. A lot of people I know on that train are on that train. Once you get on the train, it keeps moving. You have Dave Mustaine and Megadeth. He owns a brewery. Who would have said when Dave Mustaine's making "Killing is my business, business is good," running around banging his head on stage, that he's gonna one day own a brewery? No one, but that's actually really common these days. it's like a requirement to be a band is to own like 3, 4 other corporations once you get so rich and big and stuff. Um, but that's the mindset of a person moving on, right? A person who wants to build, a person who wants a corporation, a person who wants make it as a corporation to Mustaine. Metallica is obviously a corporation to Metallica, so I don't know how much extra they do. They charge enough for their tickets that they can live off that, so they don't have to. But I'm sure they, Kirk Hammett probably owns a brewery or something like that. Owns his own label and stuff. A little bit cheaper if you own your own brewery, but you got to break in somewhere, decide where to invest and all that stuff. Um, anyway, so yeah, it makes me wonder if the corporation there doesn't move on. Like people always say that Pfizer, right? So there's always that link there that Pfizer uh, might be involved in a slavery incorporated, right? A lot of people say that. A lot of people think Pfizer is just selling drugs, and they create this saying that there's cancer and there's no cure for it. What do you guys? That's not exactly what you guys say. You guys say there's no money in curing cancer. That's what you guys say. And that's like true. And just like for Slavery Incorporated, there's no money in curing slavery, right? There's definitely not boatloads of it. I mean, you could technically create a cure for it and take some profit margins, huge profit margins off the top, but unless you're being forced to, unless all your workers band together and force you to, then there's no reason to restructure it very much. Because you'll be the one who loses. Um, and I also assume a lot of people, even if some does go on for centuries, I also assume the average person is realizing that they're going to die by the time they're 100, and what they do in that time is all that matters. And so, most corporations do not last more than one person. You can't expect your child to be like you. I didn't take my dad's corporations from him, and he made cash. The few times I worked for him, I made cash. And, like, there was definitely cash to be made, but I was a kid, and he worked in an adult industries. Not that one, but other ones. And, so I never was like, hey, Dad, can I work with the business? Because I understood that, it's a legal issue in one of his businesses for me to work with him, and most of his businesses were all working around the same stuff. So I never really wanted to get into my dad's business because of that. Because when I was around him and I was young, he asked me to, but every now and then when he was low on help and someone was sick or something like that. But other than that, I never thought of that. Plus, my goal in life was I never woke up one day being like, that's what I want to do when I get older. Even though it paid really well, I didn't really think of that. I was like a rocket scientist when I was a kid. So if I ever thought of work, I was thinking of like, oh, I'll be working at NASA someday, and I was winning awards for writing. So I assumed if I needed money, I'd just write a book every now and then or something, if I wanted to. But then the NASA thing got canceled real fast. So that pretty much was like, who cares? Why do I care at all? Why am I going to waste any of my time doing any work? Because I should be making billions of dollars working on rockets if we were going to do anything. But we didn't do that. So that kind of cuts me off early, not caring. So that's the reason I didn't follow my dad's business. And then my brother doesn't follow my dad's business. He does what my dad does for other people, but then he does other stuff in life. And I don't think he even realized that my dad actually owned his own businesses, to be honest, because there was another person who did nothing but ran their mouth, and they always said he was a bum because he didn't give her tons of cash. And you know, you might have met people like that before. If you know, like, well, let's say for example I meet Tom Cruise, and I ask him, you know, like, man, I need $5 for some cigarettes. You got $5? And he's like, no. And I'd be like, man, you're a fucking bum. You ain't even got no money, do you? You need to get a real job, Tom Cruise. That situation, I would think that that probably affected someone's opinion, because they didn't actually know what was going on. All they did was hear what was going on from someone else. So I got to see it, and so neither of us followed in the family business. It's not very common. I researched this before. You know, Dave Mustaine's children aren't making good music, and 3-6 Mafia, they tried to make their children make some good music, but it's not Juicy J and 3-6 Mafia. You've never seen this. Where's Elvis's children? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the world's most famous person, bigger than Jesus. Where's his children? It never happens. It always ends. And if you're a real smart businessman, you notice that. So you might tailor your businesses to end towards the 80-year mark and stuff. A lot of things don't last very long. I mean, think of what you know today. It didn't even exist 100 years ago, did it? Little Caesar's owner just died, but pizza didn't exist 150 years ago, so he definitely didn't get that from his dad. The pizza delivery or pizza factories. And 100 years from now, you'll probably instantly generate a pizza in your own living room and not need a factory or delivery people. And 50 years from now, the factory will probably be connected to the building you live in, and it'll just be shot up a tube at you. It could be Little Caesars, could be Domino's. Whoever does it first gets it, right? Or whoever does it second. Usually it's the business that does it second that wins. Whoever does it first introduces the idea 90% of the time, and then whoever does it second achieves. Sometimes it's a little bit different, sometimes not. Anyway, so I actually think of that, you know, where does slavery incorporated in here and shit? I have people talking to me about shit, and it makes me review my whole life, because if slavery starts with people forcing you to talk to them, that's like every conversation I've ever had, because I don't talk. Not every, but real close. I remember speaking to one person, 2 people, probably 3. Probably a lot of stuff was work related where I met people too. But outside of work related, and the couple people I specifically targeted, you know, like park my car a half a mile up the road from them and start walking back to meet them type stuff. I've had that happen a lot, and I realize, like, especially with some recent conversations, like some of these conversations are just like, wow, like, what's going on here and stuff. It's like, is this a job or a test or a quest? Is this a quest being offered, or is this a plot line being discussed? And most of the times I could easily write it off as this person wants me to do something for them. So So if slavery begins with people forcing you to talk to them, and then it continues with people forcing you to do what they say, get involved in their business, but it's so weird how many times that happens. And then the next step is someone threatening you, because obviously slavery incorporated involved over the years. And Jackson, along with the CEO, learned that you don't always have to hit someone with your whip. You know, the CEO learned probably when he cocked his gun that that's probably enough to get people to come work for you. And then, you know, this is what hundreds of years ago guns were invented. So, and it was probably thousands of years ago, people learned that all you got to do is like touch your whip and, you know, just be like, mm-hmm. And maybe the first couple people you touch it and you'd be like, mm-hmm, and then, you know, within 20 years, all you do is pat your belly where the whip is, and they're like, mm-hmm, that's correct. And they get back to work. So that was like thousands of years ago. These Pavlov dog responses would have been created and ingrained and built into the psyche, along with Jackson's love for his advancement in the corporation and his ability to make sure his kids get 4 meals a week instead of 3 like everyone else, too. Or even worse than no meals, because dead people can't move their mouths to eat. So this would have been thousands of years ago that these rules were learned and built upon, and then different unique dictionaries and grammars were created. Mind games. Oceania in their double speak is very it's like a cumulation of the work of CEO of slavery industry. It's the ultimate, where we don't even have to tap the whip. We can just say, you know, there's no whip anymore. We're doing this for your health these days. And so, health, we're going to have to force you to breathe because you don't want to breathe. We're going to put you on a ventilator to force you to breathe. It's for your health. You know, it's like no one's using whips anymore. Like, apparently, there's no slavery. Just like racial supremacy didn't exist until Hitler came on the planet. Other than that, the racial supremacists already owned everything on the planet, and they made it illegal for you to even mention what they were doing. And they created the word racial supremacy as a scapegoat to be able to say it's illegal to say we're racial supremacy, and because obviously they're racial supremacy. That's what they are. Wow. So basically, it seems to me like Slavery Incorporated evolved to Oceania Incorporated over the time, and doublespeak became the tools. You know, we've refined the base methods, and we've moved on to doublespeak for the ultimate weapon beforehand. I'm not saying no one's getting killed. I'm not saying no one's getting poisoned. I'm not saying people. We've moved on to methods where your bloodline. This was thousands of years ago. They wrote in their book that they're going to terminate your bloodline.